President Trump says he'll be unveiling his pick to fill that court vacancy tomorrow evening. And CBS News is reporting who it's going to be. CBS has learned the president has picked federal appeals court judge Amy Coney Barrett to succeed Ginsburg. Barrett is a conservative Republican favorite in Washington, D.C. Our political specialist, Shaun, has more on the election implications of that court pick in her weekly reality check.
Colorado's Republican Senator Cory Gardner released a statement this week saying if President Trump's nominee for the Supreme Court is qualified, he will vote to confirm and not wait until the outcome of the election. It touched off a firestorm of criticism from Democrats who point out Gardner opposed voting on President Obama's nominee in an election year. Of course, they too have flip-flopped, saying it was okay then, but not now. So let's see what our analysts have to say about all of this. Republican Dick Wadhams, Democrat Mike Dino, always good to see you guys. Mike, I want to start with you on this. Seems to me both sides are being somewhat hypocritical here. You know, what a surprise, though, right?
Yeah, well, hypocrisy in politics is like the sun rising and setting every day. And this is, though, we're 40 days out from the election, and it really raises the stakes. A fellow political consultant in Colorado, Eric Sonderman, dubbed it the September surprise. And I don't think we've ever seen anything like this. And it is quite unusual. I think both sides are making an argument for their position. But the bottom line is that the Constitution does lay out the fact that the president can move forward with this and the Senate can vote. I think what's interesting, though, the president has said this week that he won't necessarily concede the election if he loses, which is also a constitutional element. And I like the fact that at least Mitch McConnell will stand up for that and make sure he gets him out of office if he loses.
Well, I mean, and that ties into the whole need to appoint another Supreme Court justice, because otherwise you'd have a tie on the Supreme Court and they'd have to determine that election, right? But Dick, you know, some Democrats have made the case that this time around we're 40 days out. Last time we were 9 months out. You buy that?
No. The Constitution says nothing about some kind of a time period that has to elapse or something has to be done within. The president should nominate somebody, the Senate should act. And by the way, I mean, I don't think President Trump should say those things about not conceding or whatever. But remember, it was Hillary Clinton just about a week ago who publicly said that Joe Biden should not concede if he loses the election in November, which I found kind of interesting as well. So I think we've got a lot of irresponsible comments by both sides on this thing.
Yeah, I think we all can agree on that one. Let's talk about where our Senate candidates are at on this. As I mentioned, incumbent Cory Gardner has said, vote now, don't wait. John Hickenlooper says, wait. According to the Colorado Sun, which interviewed Hickenlooper, he is not saying whether he thinks Democrats should pack the court, add additional seats to that court, should Trump move ahead with this and they win in November. He said in the past he was open to this sort of thing. So, Dick, I want your thoughts on Hickenlooper, but also whether you think the timing of this helps or hurts Gardner.
Well, in terms of Hickenlooper, who knows? I mean, the guy has been kind of out of this race from the beginning. He really doesn't take a position on anything, and when he does, he contradicts himself. But in terms of Senator Gardner, I don't know how it will play out. Shaun, I could build a case that it could help him or hurt him. I do know this. If the Democrats embark on some anti-Catholic bigotry, like they did on some other Republican nominees earlier, this could backfire on them, and it could help Cory Gardner. Amy Coney Barrett, the likely nominee by President Trump, was attacked by Senator Feinstein from California for being Catholic when she was nominated for the appellate court. And if Democrats continue to go down that line, I think there could be a backlash.
Mike, your thoughts?
Well, I think, you know, the biggest thing is that Senator Gardner still faces the fact that President Trump is weighing him down. And earlier this week on Fox News, Trump pointed out that Senator Gardner is very, very loyal to the Republican Party, which is a contrast, I think, to Senator Gardner's efforts to show his bipartisanship. Also, the words that Senator Gardner stated in March in 2016 that he did not see it being appropriate taking on the Merrick Garland nomination will play against him in ads, no doubt. And then I think one thing that's going to be in voters' minds, it looks like the hearings for a nominee may be the week of October 12th, when the ballots drop here in Colorado. And it'll be right on the forefront of people's minds that this is happening. And I don't think that bodes well for the Republicans in this state at this point.
What do you think about John Hickenlooper? He said before he was open to packing the court. Now he's not willing to take a position on that.
Well, I think John's had challenges on defining himself on issues like this, but I don't think he needs to. I think the bigger issue is who's the president, and the Republicans have to run against him, and they haven't had a good angle at doing that at this point.
All right. Our time is always too short. Thank you both. Lucky for you, we have posted more of Dick's and Mike's reality checks on CBSDenver.com, and we'll be back next week.
Shaun, we can't get enough. Thanks. Good